Na-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. The only thing I knew how to do was just dance and like do backflips. So because of that specific crush, I really wanted to write a song for her.
Mhm.
And you just hit the spot on like when the song was meant to be played. Whenever I think of Hold Me Now, I think of like dusk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mantika Podcast. This is the podcast where we dive deep into the world of creativity and explore inspiring journeys of artists, creators, writers. So I'm your host, Diana, who is the lyricist of the musical band Philo. And joining us today is John, who is a very talented singer and songwriter. So could you please introduce yourself, John?
Hi. Hello to everyone that's watching the podcast. My name is John. My artist name is Aquino, and I am an aspiring, not aspiring, I am an artist. So, yes, nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, great. So today we'll talk about John's creative path, and you can grab your favorite drinks, food, or anything you like, and let's get inspired together. So, as the first question, I usually start from the very beginning of my guest's journey. So, John, you have a fascinating background as a former JYP trainee. Is this right?
Yes,
Mm.
correct.
Yeah, so what was the audition process like for JYP, and how did you feel when you got in?
Oh man, this is the first time I'm actually getting asked this like on on a podcast. So
Oh,
thank you
that's
for
very
even
exciting.
yeah yeah thank you for even asking this. So how I got casted was actually a very wild story. So growing up, I was actually always interested in K-pop. My first exposure to K-pop was the artist Rain,
Mm-hmm.
and that was during like his heyday in the early 2000s, so like 2004, 2005. I was only like 4 at the time, but the first K-pop music video that I've ever seen in my life was his song called It's Raining. He was like at the club with
Mm-hmm.
like, everything else. So, ever since seeing that, I was genuinely like really inspired to dance. So I remember when YouTube was still like in development during that time, all I would do was just go on YouTube and just try to copy his dance moves
Mm-hmm.
consistently over and over and over. And because of my interest in K-pop at that time, that kind of led me into learning Taekwondo. Um, as you guys know, Taekwondo is like a Korean martial art, and I was very fortunate to be at the specific training studio that I was because a lot of my Taekwondo masters were all from Korea, and they all had like performance backgrounds and demonstrations. So that's like kicking the wood and doing backflips and all of that. That essentially kind of started my Taekwondo journey during like my youth, and it was very intensive. We did like a lot of like split training. We did a lot of intensive cardio training, everything for performance. And through that specific training system, I was actually exposed to, you know, Korean culture because I learned a lot of Korean culture through my Taekwondo masters, and I also learned a lot of Korean etiquette that kind of like molded like my personal like ideals and like worth ethic towards like the things I'm passionate about. So being exposed to that and also being exposed to performing a lot within like my Taekwondo group, it kind of led us to the point in where we got to perform at KCON
Mm-hmm.
2015, well, 2014 and 2015. And in 2015, we performed on the main stage before the actual show. So we were granted access to go backstage at the Staples Center at that time. And that was my first ever interactions with like K-pop idols. So during that time, it was like 2015. And this is when GOT7 was already
Mm-hmm.
debuted with like Just Right, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw Sistar for the first time. I saw Super Junior in the back. I saw just a lot of like these K-pop idols like Monsta X when they first debuted.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking to myself like, wow, how did they get there? you know, like I don't know what the system was like. The only thing I knew was just Taekwondo training, Korean culture, and dance because alongside doing Taekwondo, I was also practicing dance intensively throughout my high school years. And it was technically professional dance training because the people I was training under were essentially like now called Offstage or GRV, they now work with like BTS and like those
Mhm.
other K-pop idol groups. So I kind of had indirect training from the people that were like making choreography for those groups at the time. And doing that, in unison, like with Taekwondo, like the dance skills and the Taekwondo skills were very much just like, moving together. So
Mhm.
when I did see those K-pop idols for like the first time, again, I was just thinking to myself, how do people get there? And then I took a picture with Got7, specifically Mark and JB. And after that day, I kind of just thought to myself, like, I wonder if I'm able to do this. Because when I found out that, Mark Twan, one of the members of Got7, was, um, Taiwanese, I was very much just like, maybe it's possible. And then I learned that Jackson Wang was from China. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, maybe that's possible. And then I saw Bam Bam, he's from Thailand, and I was like, oh, maybe that's possible.
Mhm.
you know. So, and preface, I'm not Korean. I'm Filipino, Chinese
Mhm.
American. So, I did think about it after that day, and I was like, So I did my own little like research, like on YouTube. I'm like, how do people like become K-pop idols? And then I learned about the whole like, oh, you audition for like these companies, and you go through the whole audition process, and then if you get selected, you become a trainee. So I was like, interesting. So remember how I said I did like a performance at KCON
Mhm. Yeah,
2015?
yeah.
Just so happens that there was a person, like, in the crowd that was associated with one of the casting members at JYP at the time.
Mhm.
So, after she found me on social media, and then I kind of expressed on my social media at the time, "Oh, maybe I should audition," right? She was thinking like, "Oh, you should definitely try out JYP. I think, JYP's, like, company would, you know, best, like, suit you." So I was like, "Maybe," because I don't know, because like, at that time, I was thinking about auditioning for, like, YG and this program called K-Pop Star.
Mhm.
So it was between those 2, but then because that person recommended me to the person that was casting for JYP, they automatically scheduled me for a private audition because that person gave in a really good word for me. And keep in mind, I didn't really know how to sing or anything in that sense. The only thing I knew how to do was just dance and like do backflips. So, um, yeah, I got casted. They told me the specific date, which was October 3rd. And for all the Stray Kids fans that are watching, that is the same birthday as the leader of Stray Kids, Bangchan or
Mhm.
Christian.
Oh,
Yeah,
what a coincidence.
yeah. So my audition day was on his birthday, and originally I thought I was just gonna just dance and get out because I've heard that those auditions are literally like less than like 5 minutes. And when I introduced that idea to like my family, they were just like, "What is K-pop? Like, what is this? What is that? You want to go to Korea? You're trying to be a K-pop idol? Like, what?" And
Mhm.
I was kind of like, I mean, why not? you know, because I love to dance and I love to perform. So my parents thought it was a scam at first, but as soon as they saw like the address and then like the company, they were just like, okay, let's do it. So I went in, and again, usually those auditions are only like around 5 minutes. But for me, as soon as I came in, they were just like, okay, so we want you to do like a self introduction, and then we're gonna take a profile of you, and then after that, we're gonna make you model, and then after that, we're gonna make you sing
Mhm.
3 songs,
A lot of
two
stuff.
yeah, 2 in
Mhm.
English, 1 in Korean, and then we're gonna make you dance 3 choreographed dances that you have to have fully prepared, and then you have to, freestyle dance to 3 random songs that we prepared for you. So in my head, I was kinda just like, I only had 1 dance prepared, and I didn't really have that many songs, like, prepared either because I didn't really know how to sing at the time. So I was kinda just in shock, and at that time, they were still doing a lot of callbacks from, like, other people. So I was thinking, like, for me, it's like after that specific audition experience, I was genuinely just, like, really tired, and I was like, "Okay, if I end up, making it, cool. If I don't, then it's okay. Because they were still touring the audition, process
Mhm.
because they still had to go to Canada, and they just came back from New York. So I was like, "Oh, okay. I mean, it is what it is." But then after the audition, they were just like, "Oh, thank you so much for auditioning." My parents were like, "When will we get back the results?" And then, the recruiter was like, "Oh, you'll get the audition, results within like a month, right?" So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I don't have to worry about anything. And this was my last year in high school before
Mhm.
graduating. So I was going on throughout my day, right? And then I get a random phone call like 3 days later, and I was like, I hung up the phone. And then I got a text being like, "Oh, hi, this is so so from JYP Entertainment. Please give us a call back when you have the time." I give the call back, and then they're just like, "Okay, so with your audition tape, we actually just sent it to like the company like in Korea, and I just want to let you know that you passed like the audition process. Please don't tell anyone yet because we're still, going through the audition
Mm-hmm.
processing through like other, cities. But as of right now, you're the only one that made the audition." So I was like freaking out. I was like, "What? Like, what is gonna happen now?" You know what I mean? And then I tell my parents, and they were kind of just in disbelief. They're like, "What? Really?" And yeah, so knowing Filipino culture, um, Filipinos are very like comforting and they're very like protective like of their kids,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're not that familiar with like what's going on. So when the company said that they would send me the contract, my parents were in utter shock. They're just like, "What? You're gonna be doing this? You're gonna be doing that? Will you even graduate high school?" So, it was a lot of stress on my parents and a lot of stress on me because, they wanted me to just drop everything and to just move, right in the middle of like my last year of high school. And I really didn't know how to process it completely because it was a big sacrifice to kind of like sign on the dotted line and to really just kind of dedicate your life to like a possibility of even being in a boy group
Mm-hmm.
or girl group for all any type of training because it's never a guarantee for that level of success. But after very very just really thoroughly negotiating like to Korea and I started my training at JYP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a long journey and a
It's a
very,
long.
yeah, it must have been very really scary to go
Oh,
this
definitely.
path.
I mean, I was already familiar with Korean culture because of Taekwondo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of my Taekwondo masters were kind of like telling me like what the training was like. And specifically because of the very harsh training mentality that I kind of endured during like my childhood, by the time that I got to Korea, I wasn't too shocked with
Mm-hmm.
like what the training was like, mainly because I was already experienced with that specific type of system because of Taekwondo
Mm-hmm.
and how strict the Taekwondo system was for me at that time. So in terms of work ethic and everything in that sense, I never really complained. I mean, of course I cried, but
Mm-hmm.
I never really complained too much about the hard work because I already had a level of familiarity with like how Korean culture really works and how the hierarchy system really works. So I don't think I really caused any trouble from what I can recall like during that time.
Mm-hmm. And and what was your typical day like? So like the schedule, what have you done during the day?
So it depends. And it also depends on what company wants of you.
Mm-hmm.
So usually for like a lot of new trainees, from what I can remember, usually like the first couple of days, you don't really do too much. And they put you in like maybe like one or two classes just to see like where your skills are at,
Mm-hmm.
mainly in like singing. But when it does start to progress and they do consider you for like certain projects and for certain performances, the schedules can get really hectic. We would start our days technically around like 12 p.m. and then end at 10 p.m., right? But if
Mm-hmm.
you are part of a project, then you would start at like 10 a.m. and then end around 10 p.m. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you still have to practice a lot more, then the hours after 10 p.m. can extend up until like 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to repeat the process again for 6 days a week because our only off day was Sunday. And for me personally, and for a lot of other foreigners, our priority was learning Korean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and granted, my training time was really short. My Korean lessons were almost like 4 to 5 times a week on 5 hour practice training sessions. So it's never like consistently scheduled because every day is legit different. We would get our schedules like on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but most of the time, that's how like our scheduling process would be 6 days a week. And then Sunday was our only off day. Our curfew was like around, I believe, from what I can remember, like 8 p.m. Yeah, 8 p.m. was our curfew. And yeah, it was genuinely really strenuous. But during that time, everybody in the room that I can say was very special.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very rare for me to even feel that because not only was, the members as you know of and today Stray Kids was there, um, a lot of members of like, current groups of Gravity, Kiss of Life, um, even at that time, I forgot the name, but it's been a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot the name. Other than Kiss of Life, I already said Gravity, Stray Kids. Oh, NMIX.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, NMIX, ITZY, um, all those people that have just debuted, we all trained together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very rare at that time for a company to even have boys and girls train together because now it's kind of like separate.
Mm-hmm.
But, at that time for me specifically and at JYP, we did, train together collectively and we made a lot of good like friendships and like rapports with, both the boys and the girls. So oftentimes on our off days, we would all hang out together and kind of just spend, the normal things together, shopping, watching a movie, just relaxing, maybe going to the sauna.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we all did, those normal day-to-day things, collectively, like boys and girls.
That's so cool. So you were supposed to be a member of Stray Kids, right? Originally.
Um, I I wouldn't say that.
Ah.
I would just say I was considered for the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I did train very, very hard with them,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it's right for me to say I was supposed to be in
Mm-hmm. I see.
because my firm belief is Stray Kids would not be Stray Kids if it wasn't for those members. And even if
Mm-hmm.
I were, and even if other people that were considered for the project too were to be in the boy group, I don't think that Stray Kids would have the impact that they have now if
Mm-hmm.
it's not for those members. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And what was the dynamic like working and training with them? And can you share maybe any memorable moments that you have with the members?
Oh yeah. Training with them, it's very fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fun, but it can also get very serious. And I think it's because all of us collectively, we all just genuinely really liked each other. And we all knew like our work ethics, we all knew our skills. It was very easy to kind of just um, work together because when everybody has the exact same mentality of like really achieving like dreams and achieving goals and aspirations, it's very easy to really cooperate and to communicate and even delegate tasks on like what to do. Like, oh, you need to practice this, you need to practice that. And
Mm-hmm.
then I remember Chris Young or Bangchan,
Mm-hmm.
he would always just be on me being like, John, you need to practice. And he was actually really strict with Felix at that time too,
Mm-hmm.
because I know he cared a lot about Felix too, and he cared a lot about me too. And because me and Felix came in around the same time, um,
Mm-hmm.
I essentially saw his journey from the very, very beginning and up until now. And a very like special like memory I can really share. It's actually the first time that Felix walked into like the practice room.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all kind of like practicing, doing like our evaluations, and we were preparing for something called JYP Showcase.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I remember him walking into the room for the first time, and I was just like, wow, he's so like handsome. And then when I heard him talk, I was like, oh wow, he has a very deep voice. And then we were walking to the dorm, and then we were talking about like our backgrounds, where we're from, this and that. And then we were all kind of like debriefing. It was like me, it was Hyunjin, it was you know, Jisung,
Mm-hmm.
it was like the other members of Stray Kids, and Sungmin didn't come in until after. So we were all kind of just debriefing and everything. And um, yeah, I spent a lot of time with Felix specifically, and specifically in those hard times, we've always had like the hardest conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and we would get mentioned the most. So, I genuinely share like a very very special bond with Felix, and with Chris Young. He always just looked out for me, and we always had a lot of late night dinner conversations. Like we would cook something, or I couldn't really cook. He would cook, but
Mm-hmm.
We would make like dinner together, and then we would just have very, very long conversations about like, my background, his background, what our current like viewpoints of life is at this point, our personal experiences and what led us here and everything. And he advised me on a lot of things of what not to do in the company. And I always kind of just came to him for my certain stresses. And, of course, he would have to debrief with other people too, but he we had a lot of emotional investment with each other. Like me, Felix, and like the other like Stray Kids members. So by the time that, I had to go, it was genuinely really heartbreaking because it wasn't just me who had to go. It was all like, other people that they also spent a lot of time and
Mm-hmm.
emotions with, right? But because we shared all those very, very hard moments, collectively, and we were just very close to almost completing like the project. I think that's what really solidified like our dynamic and everything in that sense. Even with like Hyunjin, because I danced a lot with him. Like we did a lot of dance classes together. And even in like our free time in practicing, like we would dance a lot together.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to teach him a couple of things, and then he would teach me a couple of things. And then I helped Felix a lot with his dancing too at that time. So yeah, we genuinely just trained a lot together. We even had yoga class together. And yoga
Oh.
class was so fun. Oh my gosh, yeah. So at company, with JYP's like principles, like there is like a level of like, taking care of your body, taking care of yourself. And boys and girls would have yoga classes to kind of just alleviate that level of stress. So we all did yoga class together, and I just remember like we were doing like handstands, we were doing squats, and we were just laughing like the entire time because it was just genuinely really like relaxing and really fun. So yeah, those are kind of like one of like my personal key moments that I remember during like my training days. And yeah, we genuinely did a lot together. But of course, when it's time to get serious, that's when it really has to get serious. Like we have to get it done. But other than that, we were all very much scheduled, and we always made sure to keep like our standards like kind of low, but at the same time perform the best that we can, always putting our best foot forward. So that was always like our mentality.
That's so heartwarming to hear. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for sharing these
no
moments.
worries. Yeah,
Yeah, so you've released a song called Hold Me Now, right?
yeah.
So come hold me now, baby, 'cause all I want is you.
And I have to confess that this song was on repeat for like a week on my
Oh,
playlist.
really?
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. And I also like the remixes that you released yesterday or today, I think. Yeah, it depends on
Yeah.
your time zone, guys. Yeah, so how did this song come together? And can you share maybe, did you start with the melody, with the lyrics, or maybe with a particular feeling that you've had
Oh,
for? Mhm.
yeah. Um, Gladly, I would love to. Before I get into like the development of Hold Me Now, um, we have to actually kind of go back to how this whole project is starting to develop.
Mhm.
So, um, after I got back from, JYP, I did have like a period of time in where like I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was very much lost and confused. And granted, I was given other opportunities to audition for other companies. And none of them ever really like felt right to me, even when I did audition.
Mhm.
So I kind of just went back to school, and I'm currently in nursing school. Surprise!
So cool.
Yeah, yeah, I'm in nursing school. We're about to graduate very, very soon. Hopefully by
Congrats.
thank you. By end of the year or next year, so you'll have BSN RN on my name very soon.
Mm.
But yeah, at that time, I was not developing. I was currently like in the process of like getting accepted into nursing school, and kind of battling with the idea of like, should I still try music? Should I not? Should I just suppress like the entertainment aspect of me
Mhm.
during this time and just purely focus on education because it felt like there weren't really any other good opportunities for me to even like pursue it. And if that door was already shut, then I was thinking to myself like, oh, then maybe music was never really meant for me, or this entertainment lifestyle was never meant like for me. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So I was very much just focused on trying to get back into school, getting into nursing school, and getting back into taekwondo. But when COVID happened, and that period of isolation for almost everybody around the world was starting to kind of like take a toll, I slowly started to really get back into the idea of like maybe I should just try it. You know what I mean? I was reconnecting with a friend, and she introduced me to her brother who owns like a little music studio,
Mhm.
in like my local area. And after getting introduced to him, I was thinking to myself, oh, maybe, if this was naturally getting introduced back to me, then maybe music is slowly like working itself back into my life. So I remember having a crush on a girl at one time, and then because of that specific crush, I really wanted to write a song for her.
Mhm.
So, I ended up writing a song, and I feel like for a lot of like aspiring artists, they kind of just go on YouTube and look up type beats, and they just write over it, and copy the WAV file, and then they record on like Logic or anything in that sense, and then they record it, send it over. Maybe it's not fully mixed or mastered, but you know I did that for a girl I really liked at the time, and she really liked it. It was the effort that counted. Um, and that specific moment and that specific song, if it wasn't for that song, then I wouldn't have started like a training period for myself in just songwriting and understanding melody construction, harmonies, cadences. I wouldn't have known any of that if I didn't start that, if it wasn't for, starting that song
Mhm.
for that girl. So within that specific 2-year run of me just learning how to songwrite and even connecting with like producers at that point, um, there was a period of time last year in where everything academically in nursing school was just not going well for me. And I was very much like lost again. And I had a very hard time trying to recuperate and trying to get myself back up. And then when my songwriter that I work with, right, introduced me to her boyfriend, who is a producer,
Mhm.
and he does the mixing and mastering process. He has a background in also doing, K-pop work and being assigned to an independent label at one point. We took a chance on each other to, make a song organically from the ground up, and I felt like that was the kickstart to the project that I have or that I'm currently developing called Love Letters to You. And after really kickstarting that project, Hold Me Now was actually the second song that we really worked on together. Um, so for me to thoroughly understand like the context of Hold Me Now and how that development process began, um, it actually stems from the concept of love letters to you.
Mhm.
So with that specific project, when you think of love letters to somebody, you're usually thinking about writing something very intimately to a person that you love, whether that be like a significant other, whether that be like to like your family members or to, your friends in that sense, any type of, letter that's very like intimate and that really like, expresses your feelings. Um, and taking that specific concept in mind, I really wanted to make something that's not mainly about like, oh, my personal experiences or anything like that, or towards like a girl or towards a partner. I really wanted to make it towards like the actual listener,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
the stages of love, in my opinion, it genuinely leaves a very deep impact on you, and it can take you into so many different avenues, especially within like the human experience. So I really wanted each song that I'm developing on this project to represent a phase that you would go through in love. So with Hold Me Now kind of being like the second song that we like thoroughly like developed, it's essentially the third stage of love, and where everyone kind of calls it like the honeymoon phase.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we had that specific idea in mind of like this is the peak of what you feel when you're with this person, when you want to be with this person, when you're just so absolutely focused on this person to the point in where it's like you're the only one that they see. You're the only one that you're the only one that they want to be with, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like it's just like that idea of just like simply just to put it like I just want you, so we did pull from like a lot of like references including like the weather. For me, whenever I think of Hold Me Now, I think of like dusk, you know
Mhm.
like when the sky and the sun meet, and it starts to set, and then like the whole atmosphere becomes very bluish.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah. That
description.
was like the weather atmosphere that I was genuinely like envisioning. And I really wanted to try and emulate something that was just very warm and like very sincere. We knew that lyrically it couldn't be overly complicated
Hmm.
and it couldn't be overly poetic because there's a very fine line in where that can either make the song, break the song, or make it feel like a little bit corny.
Hmm.
So, um, we really did our best to make sure that there was like a specific cadence and a specific flow, but at the same time making sure that whatever was being written and whatever was being executed from the harmonies to like, the lyrics and everything in that sense, it was genuinely like from the heart. And we really made sure that there was like strong, strong feeling within that execution from the instrumental development of like boom, tap,
Hmm.
and even making like the piano melody of da na 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 da na 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 na. Yeah, we really made sure that it felt very warm and people can really kind of just resonate with that if that person has been in love or has not been in love before. At least they can kind of just go into that specific memory box or that specific feeling and kind of just like relate to that. Which is why it's called Love Letters to You, like the
Hmm.
listener. So that was kind of like the development of like Hold Me Now. Lyrically, too, other than keeping it simple, I was actually tapping into like Spider-Verse.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Mm.
I was tapping into Spider-Verse because Across the Spider-Verse is one of my favorite movies, and that was also another atmospheric inspiration for the song. And I was heavily thinking about Miles and Gwen. Mainly like when they meet again, in the movie and when they were swinging together like throughout the city.
It
You
really
can
fits them.
Yeah, you can sense a level of longing between them and you can sense like a level of just like as much chaos as there is in the multiverse right now, I just genuinely want to be with you in this specific dimension. And that scene and where they're kind of just sitting next to each other, to me that also really embodied Hold Me Now. And I really did my best to really emulate those lyrics towards that, along with my parents' love story.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
sweet.
so another inspiration for the concept of Love Letters to You was actually my parents. During like my time of just trying to recuperate and with music slowly working itself back into my life, my dad was actually going through like his photo album, and then he actually showed me a physical love letter that he wrote to my mom while they were dating at
That's
the
so
time.
sweet.
And granted, the story behind how he made that love letter was actually so funny. Like he just got like a different number of like love cards and
Mm.
just like typed it on like the typewriter. Different messages here and there, and just kind
Mm.
of just piecing it together. When I read that specific message, and it was on Valentine's Day, I think it was like in 1991, around that time frame. Everything felt very sincere, and everything felt very like loving. So after reading that letter, and then after realizing that this is what Love Letters to You is really about, again, I really wanted to channel that specific type of energy into like Hold Me Now. So
And what's your songwriting process in general? Do you usually start with the beats or maybe with the lyrics, or it depends on the song?
it really does depend on the
Mm.
song. For Hold Me Now, we had a lot of references to pull from,
Mm-hmm.
like different song references to pull from, so we can have a direction on like where to go. So we first made the beat for that song. And I was already kind of like set on the beat pattern or like the kick pattern being like boom, ka,
Mm-hmm.
boom, ka, right? But at the same time, not making it sound exactly like the references, right? So we did our best to kind of just alter that specific beat pattern to still keep that level of groove, while at the same time with the instrumentals, with like the synths and everything in that sense, making sure that it does, surround itself with a level of warmth and like sincerity from like the piano, instrumentation to the synths to maybe even like a vocal sample at that point. We were kind of just experimenting. I remember that specific night when we were making the beats, it was literally just us just like daydreaming and just trying to catch a vibe in
Mm-hmm.
that sense. And as soon as we found like the melody and kind of just pinpointing like, oh, I really like the da na 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 na. Like he was just playing around with it,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, I feel like this has to have a bridge. And then he came up with the piano melody of da na 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 da na na, and then we were developing like the build up with like the drums, and then within that specific like pocket, to me that felt like the heartbeat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really felt like the heartbeat to me. And I was just like, this is like the sincerity and work that I've been chasing the entire time. So, with me, my producer, and my songwriter, we were all kind of just doing melody passes with the beat that we just made. And then the first lyric, focused on your heart, I feel like I'm falling right towards you, falling into you. My producer actually did that melody pass. And then me and my songwriter were the ones that started to write the lyrics. And lyrically, too, other than the inspirations from being from Spider Verse and my dad's love letter. Um, my another song that really inspired like that song too is a song by Miguel. It's called Simple Things, and we took a lot of inspiration from him too, in the sense of his lyricism, in the sense of within that song, it felt very, very like sincere and like focused. You know what I mean? So we didn't really try too much to emulate that, but we had like the melody idea and the lyric idea of like where we're gonna go. So when it came to that specific, melody process and songwriting process, um, during that first session, we finished writing up to the first verse up until the development of like, the chorus. Like, so come home me now, baby. Like, I did that like on the spot. It just randomly came out of me out of nowhere during that melody pass, and I was like, I know this song has to go really high, as much as like it's hard to really do it. We just had to. So yeah, we locked in like the first verse all the way to the hook, but it took me like a week to make like the second verse, because I was very much stuck with like where should the melody go. And then when I came back to the studio, literally like a week ish later, I believe, um uh we were kind of just compromising like the melody flow, because the trends in like modern R&B and pop is kind of like that little rap pocket where it's very like melodic, right?
Mm.
So when it came to like the second verse of like feeling night energy,
Mm.
like it was really meant to be, like my producer was the one to recommend that idea of putting the yeah at the end. So
No.
it's like, like how like those different cadences of like, saying words differently in the song to make it feel more emotional. It was very much that same idea, from the pre-hook and into that second verse of like, I don't know how you do this to me. You know what I mean? It's like pleading in that sense. I don't know how you do this to me. It's
Yeah.
not this, but like this. You know what I mean? And then with the feeling night energy, like it was really meant to be. It's very much like a play on like ya and you. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you actually read like the registered lyrics, it just says feeling all your energy. But when I say that word energy at the very end, it's like a release. So it's like feeling my energy. Like it was really meant to be you. Feels so right because I know you're my destiny. You know what I mean? He really recommended that idea to me, and that low key also changed the way that I approach songwriting too, and like vocal and dictional like enunciation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what really solidified the song for me throughout that process was actually the harmony. I'm pretty sure you can hear it. It was like you, and there's no other way. Yeah, that song, that specific like harmony to me was the icing on the cake that really
Mm-hmm.
helped kind of like carry the song. So yeah, that was kind of like our process in like the beat making and like the songwriting and the lyric, composition, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all the insights. It's very interesting to hear how other artists approach their songwriting process because it's different for every singer and every songwriter.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so now let's go to the questions from fans. I've received lots of questions from your
Really?
fans, yeah, and I've chosen the best of them. Some of them they like kind of repeat. So let's start with the first one. Tell us more about yourself outside of music and dance, because as you mentioned, you are getting a degree in nursing.
Yes, so I am a nursing student.
Mm-hmm.
I have been in nursing school for about 3 years so far. We're in like our final stretch. And everything else outside, I still like to exercise. I still like to practice taekwondo whenever I
Mm-hmm.
can. I'm not as flexible as I used to be. But we still, if we're given like a kicking paddle, I'm pretty sure, natural muscle memory can really, you know, kick in. And fun fact too, they really like to use my taekwondo skills in JYP. So like I remember during like our showcase performance, like I had to do like this one kick and it took so much energy out of me. But if it wasn't for that kick, it wouldn't have made the performance.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I still like to exercise. I do like to walk. I actually also really like to um not really like study, but practice like, spiritual practices,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like prayer and everything in that sense. And I even have like my own prayer journal that kind of like helps me, stay aligned with like my faith and, practicing that like wholeheartedly. And other than that, yeah, I don't really do too much, in all honesty. I'm very much a couch potato. I like to just lie down on my bed, kind of bed rot for like a little bit until I have like something to do. I
Yeah, I think we are
loved,
all like that.
yeah,
Obviously.
I'm very normal. I like to play games, mainly console games like RPG games like Kingdom Hearts, Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
um, even SpongeBob.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, I love to play like PS5 games. And then yeah, I like to spend time with my family, hang out with my friends, and just genuinely have like really good conversations about everything else.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing it with us. So, as
Uh-huh.
for the second question, do you still keep in touch with any of your former JYP peers?
Yes, I do.
Mm.
I still keep in contact with a lot of them. Some of them have just reached into, just pursuing the academic life. Some of them, you know, have already debuted. Some of them, are working like as songwriters or, doing their own clothing brands or,
Mm-hmm.
just living like a very simple life. But yes, I still keep in contact with a lot of like my JYP peers and, every time we do talk and every time like we do catch up, it's always very like heartwarming because we all collectively like shared very hard times together. So yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Let's look at the next one. What inspires you as an artist, and do you have any favorite musicians or other creative personalities who have had a special influence on you?
Oh yes. So in terms of like my artistic inspirations, it genuinely stems from like everyday life and the very simple things. Like you can randomly get inspiration by a simple conversation or through just grocery shopping, taking a
Mm.
shower, brushing your teeth, going to the toilet, So like, like it's just the normal everyday things and like the random thoughts that just kind of pop up in your head. And even just listening to music and having a specific direction of like, oh, I really want like my next song to sound like this, or I really want to make something, very akin to this, but very much like my own. Like in terms of those specific inspirations, that's where it can kind of like come in and out. Even in like religious practices and other conversations, and even learning about other people's lifestyles.
Mhm.
A lot of the times, I do have a lot of conversations about like relationships and the approaches of love and the struggles that it comes into developing relationships, both in like friendship, spiritual, and everything else. So that also very much inspires me as an artist, along with what's inspiring like the my project. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? And then in terms of musical inspiration, like from artists, I take a lot of inspirations from a lot of songwriters that are actually not that famous.
Mhm.
And they're very much like akin within like a specific like songwriting community. So if there are artists that I genuinely just absolutely like admire and adore, it's a Filipino Canadian songwriter R&B artist. His name is Conception or John Conception, and a girl from Virginia. Her name is Twelly, and both of them, specifically those two, they were honestly one of like my biggest and one of like the biggest reasons like as to why I started songwriting again. Like their styles and like their execution is literally like how I want to pursue that.
Mhm.
Um, there's another artist from California too. His name is Jamie Boy. They're all like very much like R&B artists, and the way that they just execute their music, the way that they deliver it, and the way that they're able to really, showcase like their talents in that sense, that to me really inspired me to just be like, yo, if they can do it, then I feel like I can do it too. Maybe even though like our backgrounds are like completely like different, and like, the development period was really different, like, their own stories and like, their artistry and their catalog alone was, inspiring for me to just, pick up my phone, start texting and like
Mhm.
writing, and pick up the pen and do everything else. So yeah. And then other artists that I really love, his name is Tone Stith. He is one of like my top favorite R&B artists as of right now. And he also inspires me a lot in terms of like vocal execution and melody composition. Cause like if you ever take a listen to Tone Stith and you really like hear his music, it's very like, the SpongeBob meme and where like
Mm.
the headphones are on and you're kind
Oh,
of just
yeah.
like, yeah, it feels like that with Tone Stith.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and a little additional question from me. Do you have any artists that you would like to collab with?
Yes, I would love to collaborate with songwriters. I just mentioned
Mm-hmm.
Twelly. I would love to collaborate with Conception, John Conception, and then two other artists I would genuinely love to collaborate with. It's a girl named Haven. She's from Singapore. She's under a company called Wild,
Mm-hmm.
and um, Denise Julia. She's an artist from the Philippines. Those are like, are my four main people that I would just genuinely love to like do a song with. So
I
yeah.
hope that you will have this opportunity in the future.
Oh man, I hope I got to build up my catalog.
Did you get
Yeah,
a chance to connect with them or still not?
I do.
Mm.
So oftentimes I just repost a lot of their songs,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because I'm just a fan. Like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
a genuine fan. Like their projects were absolutely amazing. Like if you ever listen to Conception's like recent album Freefall, like oh my gosh, that album to me as of right now is album of the year, 10 out
Mm-hmm.
of 10, no skips. And then if you listen to Twelly, um, her current EP, He Loves Me Not, like that's also like a 10 out of 10 EP for me, like no skips at all. And I do kind of talk with them, but mainly as like a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Twelly did take a listen to Hold Me Now, and she even commented on the YouTube video, and I was like,
Oh,
oh my gosh,
that's
like
awesome.
yeah, she inspired me so much. So if I am able to, you know, actually lock in something with them in terms of like an actual like collaboration, like that would kind of be like a full circle moment for me.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll do it. You're so talented in so many
Oh no,
ways here, so it will
we're
happen for
doing
sure.
we're doing our best. We're doing our best. Thank you.
Yeah, so as for the next question, what is the most touching or funny gift or letter you have received from your fan? Or maybe a message?
Oh, a message? Um, to be honest, a lot of like the Stray Kids fans have been very like, warm and kind to me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with now, since the fandom has really expanded, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are really like starting to discover me to a certain extent. It's not the whole fandom, it's just like a very, very like small,
Mm-hmm.
group of people that kind of just like notice me at the concert or have known of me because of like, the past experiences. But it's very heartwarming to see messages of like, I've actually followed you ever since, you started social media, and to see like everything that like you've been, growing for yourself. It's very like inspiring to see. Like getting messages specifically like that has been very like heartwarming. And then also getting validation from like the Stray Kids members about like my song. They're just like, oh wow, like this is like way way better than I expected, and it's a really good start to our project. And funny thing is, even Jisung Han,
Mm-hmm.
like he was able to automatically recognize where the influence of my song came from, because
Oh.
when he heard it,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when he heard it, he was like, why does this remind me of Spider-Man? And I was like, as a matter of fact, I sent him the entire like description, and he was like, no way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so he said, it felt very intimate and personal. So I'm just like, okay, if I'm getting validation from like, the members at that point, and it's very like private, through like private message, like I don't need any exposure or anything in that
Mm-hmm.
sense, right? That kind of just validates me personally, that I'm like, okay, they did also kind of see something in me, and specifically Chris Young too, because um there is a video like on TikTok. It's not like viral or anything, but I did want to post it to kind of just showcase like the bond that like we shared throughout the
Mm.
years. People that may not know or may know. And during the the cart thing like at the
Oh
concert,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was kind of funny because during that specific section, it feels like I kind of robbed like everybody's fan experience because they were all just like focused on me, Hannah, and David
Oh
because we were
yeah.
all in the same section. But when it came to like me specifically, Chris Young, he was literally just like, "You'll be up there. You'll be up there."
Oh.
Was like, oh man, like that genuinely meant a lot. And then, when Felix passed by, we're just like,
Mm.
my God. So, yeah, those were like the very like private messages that genuinely gave me like a lot of encouragement. And Felix too, he played a really big role in my life last year to, help me pick up the pieces. And he was actually one of the first people to listen to the demo of Hold Me Now.
Mm,
And he
mhm.
was, wow, like when I do listen to you, like I do hear like a different artist. So I'm kind of just like, oh, okay, like that assures me, good guidance too. So yeah, those are like the messages I've been getting like very personally. So it is very heartwarming.
Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna be big in this industry, and yeah.
we, cause like our expectations are still like really low,
Mm,
but at the same time, we're always just our main goal and our own priority is to just keep putting your best foot forward, like no
mhm.
matter what. So yeah, that's the mentality as of
Yeah,
right
that's a
now.
spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the last question I've chosen from fans. In your opinion, what's more important for becoming an idol, natural talent or relentless hard work?
Ooh, becoming an idol?
Hmm.
Based off of my experiences, I would genuinely say it's 50-50. Mainly because when it comes to companies casting, it really depends on what they're looking for. If you embody the image that they look for, then the training aspect of developing singing, dancing, and everything else will naturally come from the company. And
Mhm.
over time, as the company invests in you, your skills will naturally improve. But there's always the saying, hard work beats talent when talent work fails to work hard. That is also applicable within like this entertainment like, thing. You know what I mean? So it is very much a combination of both, but it also depends on your mentality and how you exercise it. So if you're just relying on your talent and you're not really working hard, chances are the person that's working just as hard as you is most likely going to exceed you in terms of your talent. But if you're able to keep like a mindset of just, you know, staying, fairly grounded and having morals and principle beliefs that will help guide you not only in life, but also in like how you train and how you want to pursue artistry, it will definitely help you essentially kind of stand out to a certain extent. And it will help, have people have eyes on you because you're not trying to overly flaunt yourself. You're not trying to do too much for like an X amount of attention. Just simply being and expressing yourself wholeheartedly without the idea of chasing an image because there are people within the K-pop industry and in the music industry in general that pursue artistry for the wrong reasons,
Mm.
whether that be for their own vanity, whether that just be for being famous and wanting to be a celebrity in that sense. I feel like having that specific mentality is like the wrong way to approach it because artistry is something that cannot be taught. It's something
Yeah, I
that can be
agree.
developed. Yeah, it is something that can genuinely be developed through trial and error, but is not something that you can be taught because you can't teach somebody to be creative. You can
Mm.
teach them techniques and you can teach them like ways to execute it, but you can't, teach somebody like how to develop ideas organically. You can teach and guide someone in how to hone in on their craft, but you can't really like make somebody or naturally develop like creativity, you know what I mean? So I firmly believe like as artists our main goal is to just share our creativity in the most authentic way possible, and the notoriety and like the fame and everything else, that's not important. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, if it comes, it comes. If it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, at the end of the day, it really does matter on like if you feel satisfied with what you put out. And on top of that, if you're getting listened to by the right people. You know what I mean? Because there is like an idea of like, false hype and being drowned in that specific false hype to the point in where as an artist you don't even have the chance to improve because if they're just hyping you up consistently
Mm-hmm.
consistently consistently there's going to be a specific plateau in your skill and your execution and where there's like a stunt in growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even as like artists and creatives just being very honest with critiques and feedbacks like to each other in that sense, that helps us really like grow to become better artists, to grow platforms, to grow the fan base for people to just follow and invest like in us, like as artists. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, in terms of like being an idol, it's very much like a 50-50. Like you do have to have both, but I wouldn't say either or overshadows.
Yeah, I agree. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, as for the final part of our podcast, we usually play a game called This or That. So you have to choose the variant. There are two variants, and you have to choose one. So,
Okay.
dance practice for 8 hours or songwriting for 8 hours.
Ooh. Man, you put me on the spot. Songwriting for 8 hours.
Okay,
Because
I will
within
choose
songwriting,
the same.
like songwriting for 8 hours, that's also including like, production making,
Hmm.
right? Melody composition. I would just have to make sure I have a lot of honey and like tea and like water to, you know, take in so we can thoroughly like, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Writing
Mhm.
lyrics or composing melodies.
Because I feel like both go hand in hand. Because when you do like, you know, bring out melodies, you're also saying lyrics,
Hmm.
whether that be mumble mumble. So I would say melodies,
Hmm.
melodies.
Studio recording or live performances.
Well, you need the studio in order for you to do a live performance. Um, Personally though, I haven't done one yet, but live performance
Mhm.
because I'm also a firm believer that there is so much you can do live that you cannot do in the studio.
Yeah.
So if you're able to really express all of that like on the stage and to have that like really connect, then I feel like as an artist, you're also doing that job correctly.
Yeah, we're waiting for Aquino live concert.
Live concert, oh man, we're trying.
The next one, collaborating with a K-pop star or a Western artist.
mm, it depends on my relationship with them. Uh, Man, because okay, as much as a stigma as it is, if I collaborate with like a K-pop artist, I feel like um they would overshadow the original artist
Mm-hmm.
because of popularity, in my opinion. Might be a controversial take. Because I'll give you an example. Like when Taeyang came back with Vibe with BTS's Jimin, of course all the OG like K-pop fans came back, but majority of like the viewers were ARMY, right? And they were only praising Jimin without
Mm-hmm.
even praising like Taeyang. You know what I mean? So when it comes to like, artists, collaborating with like K-pop artists, sometimes it's a give and take. Either it would overshadow the original artist and the K-pop fans would just only be focused on the idol,
Mm-hmm.
or they would be focused on, the actual like song as a whole. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So for me, if I were to really choose, I would say Western artists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I feel like, you know, in that specific viewpoint, it is a lot more well respected in that sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Late night studio sessions or early morning workouts.
Man. mm, Late night studio sessions.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hold Me Now as a Cry in Your Room at 2 a.m. song or Drive Alone with the Windows Down song.
Dang, you just hit the spot on like when the song was meant to be played. Wow.
What's the vibe? Choose it.
The vibe, driving down alone.
Yeah, I think it fits better.
Yeah.
Pop or rock?
Pop.
Early
Yeah.
bird or night owl?
Yo, these days I've been an early bird. High
Mm.
key. Yeah. For some reason, I've just been waking up really early for some reason, and either that's because of stress, or it's just because I don't really sleep that well either. Yeah.
Rainy days or sunny days?
Rainy days.
History or future?
History. Yeah, history. Mainly because if I were to know the future, then I wouldn't know the work that I would have to do
Mm.
in order to make that happen. You know what I mean? So I think it's better to have like a long history for people to really invest in versus just like, oh, future, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are done with the game. And before we wrap up, do you have any exciting announcements on your upcoming project that you would like to share with our listeners or viewers?
Yes, I do have a second single coming out very
Mm-hmm.
soon. There's no specific, date yet on when it's going to be released, but expect something very emotional and very intimate and kind of like almost the polar opposite of like Hold Me Now.
Yeah, we are ready to cry to this song.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Expect like a bit more of like a very vulnerable type
Mm.
of like track coming very soon. And again, the concept of love letters to you are essentially different phases that you go through in love and in life. And it's more than just romantic relationships. It's, friendships.
Mm-hmm.
It's the spiritual journey. It's everything else in that specific ideal. So I hope that when the project does come out and when the second single comes out, I hope you guys are genuinely able to relate to each phase. And if you are able to gravitate towards that, I hope it can genuinely just help you in life in that sense. Because that is the goal of Love Letters to You.
Yeah, we'll be there to support you and your songs when
Thank
you
you so
sing
much.
this.
I genuinely appreciate that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and for those who want to connect with your song, your songs, I will leave all your social media in the comments and also the links to your songs, to your works. And thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Eco Podcast. It was absolutely fantastic to hear you share this insight with us. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a comment. What do you think about today's episode? And don't forget to connect with John and with me on our social media. I will share all the social media platforms down below. And write in the comments also who you would like to see as the next guest and your favorite part of Hold Me Now song in
Ah,
the comments. Yeah, by the way, what is your favorite part of the song? Do
the
you have?
song, it's still the
Oh,
you. Like,
yeah,
that
that's so
that
good.
specific harmony to me was really like the second heartbeat of like the song. It really to me very much embodied like that specific feeling. Yeah. So that's my personal favorite.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people from what they told me, they really like the second verse.
Mhm.
Feeling like energy.
Yeah,
People really like that. So I was like, oh, nice. So yeah.
yeah. So thank you very much for being here today with us. And until then, keep exploring, keep creating, keep shining. And thank you for listening. And we hope to catch you next time. And bye for now.
Yes. Much
Yes.
love, everyone. Thank you.